Hey, how's it going? Steven here. This is by far the most conflicting I've felt towards an electric skateboard in a very long time, and I'm especially conflicted towards the implementation of this new steering damper that's installed on the front and the back trucks of the Ruckus. The Ruckus was my most anticipated board of the year, and I really tried to like it, but I just don't. And actually, I don't recommend this board unless you belong to a very narrow subset of riders who are willing to overlook some major trade-offs. This is just my personal opinion. You may have a great time on the Ruckus and have a verdict completely different from mine. And that's okay. Let me know down below whether you agree with my points or not. And as a full disclosure, I am not a sponsored reviewer. This is not a review unit. I bought this with my own hard-earned cash. If you want to learn about the positives of this board, just look up any of the other sponsored reviews. But if you want a second opinion, or the devil's advocate so to speak, then stay a while and listen. Steering dampers, like the ones installed on the Ruckus, are widely used on motorcycles and even on high-speed electric scooters. Even the Ruckus promotional video shows a motorcycle wobbling out of control. But there is a huge difference when dampers are installed on motorcycles, as these types of vehicles lean to make turns, therefore bypassing the steering damper during most of normal operations. This means when turning on a motorcycle with a damper installed, the motorcycle leans while keeping the steering column straight. As a result, the damper does not fully engage and interfere with turning. The steering dampers only provide resistance when you turn the handlebars, but motorcycles and electric scooters bypass the need to constantly wrestle with the damper's resistance by keeping the handlebars straight and leaning to turn instead. With the Ruckus electric skateboard, the dampers engage and actively provide resistance every time you turn and every time you carve, making it interfere with the way you ride. When the dampers are on, it feels like I'm riding through thick mud. The board feels heavy, restricted, and unresponsive. I find myself having the most fun on the Ruckus when the dampers are disabled on the lowest setting, and that is the cost of having wobble protection. You're trading a considerable amount of fun in terms of agility and responsiveness to hedge against a potential wobble event in the future. Are you okay with riding in perpetuity in what it feels like thick mud to have this one hedge against wobbles? To me, it's no. It takes all of the fun away from why I ride. As a result, I would keep the dampers off to have the most amount of fun and not be restricted. But what's even the point of buying this board if I have the dampers turned off all the time? The cost and trade-off for turning the dampers on is just not worth it to me. Another thing I don't like about the dampers is how they feel fundamentally different from bushings. In the simplest example, a steering damper is mostly filled with oil in two chambers. As you turn the damper, oil flows from one chamber to the other. When the settings are higher, the openings between the oil chambers become smaller, and as a result, restricting the flow of oil between the chambers. This restriction of oil flow creates resistance that prevents wobbles from happening. But because of this resistance, the Ruckus feels like there's a lag between command input and actual response of the board when it comes to turning and maneuvering the board. The lag feels similar to the lag we see in video games that have high latency or high pin. I think we have all seen this before. You turn right, and your character doesn't turn right immediately, waits for a few moments until it actually turns. On the Ruckus, it feels this way because you need to wait until all the oil is squeezed out of one chamber into another to complete your turn. This effect is detectable at all levels, and the faster you carve, the more apparent it becomes. With bushings, it's completely different. Once you apply a force to the deck, your deck turns in accordance to how much force you apply to the bushings. It's instant, and you no longer need to wait for the deck to sink in to complete its oil transfer to the other chamber. Yes, of course, you can decrease the damper settings, but all of them are noticeable unless you set the setting to low, which also then defeats the whole purpose of even having dampers in the first place. Also, what I've noticed is that the lag difference between the front trucks and the rear trucks can be unsettling at higher speeds. Skateboarders put more weight on the front truck and control turning with the front leg. When you turn on a board with only bushings, the rear truck follows into the turn and snaps back into place when you complete the turn or carve. Because of the lag while using the damper, when you straighten out your front truck, the rear truck is still turning and trying to slowly straighten out. I think we all can guess what might happen when your front truck is going straight and your rear truck is still trying to catch up and not going straight. Again, the solution to this is to lower your damper settings, but then again, it defeats the purpose of having dampers in the first place. I think the biggest difference you need to get used to is how different the dampers feel to bushings. When relying solely on bushings, the board reacts instantly, and the deck tilts to angles directly proportional to how much force you apply to it. But when it comes to relying on dampers, it's hard to feel how deep the turn will truly be as the deck sinks slowly to one side. So you could be applying just a little force, and the deck could take a few moments to sink down, and it could keep sinking further than anticipated. This lag and high resistance movement takes a while to get used to. For those of you who have more than one skateboard, not only do you have to master this new damper's behavior, you also have to be able to master switching between your other boards and remembering their characteristics as well. However, at this point I have to ask, does this damper solution feel better than just using high durometer and higher quality bushings? At this point, I would have to say I prefer the bushing solution more, as I don't have to rewire my brain for new riding characteristics. With bushings, you can bring the same familiar setup to almost every single skateboard out there. But with this new damper, you really have to rewire your brain to this new type of resistance and lag in responsiveness to take full advantage of it. To someone who is determined, I can see you mastering this board, but it just seems to be too much work. It could be the same amount of work that you can put in to learn how to actually manage wobbles in the first place. Also, it seems like this wobble is a problem that can already be fixed cheaply with high quality, high durometer bushings. When the dampers are turned on, the board is just as not maneuverable as stiff bushings and seemingly achieves the same end goal. I personally would take the $20 bushings option if I needed the board to be stable. Okay, but what if you are a beginner? Would riding this board be safer for you? I would recommend beginners to get a normal board and practice wobble control. Putting wobble control as a skill set under your belt is better relying solely on dampers or stiff bushings to get you out of wobbly situations. Remember, when you know how to control wobbles, that's a skill set you can take to every skateboard out there. But if you jump the gun and rely only on dampers to ride at speeds past your skill level, you can quickly find yourself in deadly situations. The way I see it, this board is good for beginners who want to jump the gun and go high speed right away while skipping to learn how to properly manage wobble as a skill set. Or you're already experienced, you don't really carve or cruise, you just go balls to the wall fast all the time in a straight line with few turns. And you don't care about rewiring your brain for the lag, and you don't care about riding through resistance as if riding in mud, and you don't want to try already proven cost-effective solutions such as a high quality, high durometer bushings, then this board is for you. At the end of the day, I had the most fun on this board with the dampers turned off at the lowest setting. If it were up to me, I would actually want to buy a version of the Ruckus at a few $100s cheaper without the dampers set up. I can see how someone may try really hard to make it work for them, but there are existing cost-effective solutions and skill-based solutions without significant trade-offs to responsiveness. Personally, I think this is an over-engineering solution to a problem that already have solutions and comes with huge trade-offs. I'll still be testing this board for a while, and I strive to learn more about this setup to have my opinions challenged. Let me know if you have any questions and if you agree or disagree with my opinions. Remember, these are my opinions, they may be different from yours. If you do disagree, I would love to hear about and discuss it with you.